All right. All right. Welcome back to the Behind the Back podcast. We are your host. I am Marcos Conan, and beside me here is Ben the Jet Retz. How are you doing, brother? How was your Thanksgiving? Did you have a good Thanksgiving week?
Thanksgiving was awesome, man. It was just a good time, good family, good friends. It's a blessed day. How was yours?
Oh, it was great. Yeah, very mellow, low key. Nice to just be with the family. So it was good. Um, so let's set the stage before we do, because it's a big week. Everyone knows why we're here. Jerseys are clearly going to say it. This is a big week. But before we get into it, we are finally going to be on YouTube. So for those who are audio listeners only, you can now see our pretty faces up on YouTube. Go ahead, and it is the Behind the Back podcast. You can find our channel there. We will have links in the description on all of our social media platforms, as well as in the episode description too. So you guys should be able to find us right away. So subscribe, comment, leave some comments there, and we'll be able to respond much easier. It'll be that way we can get a little bit more engaged with you guys. So, and you guys can fire off your takes at us. So without further ado, Ben, this is it. This is the week. So I'm going to let you set the stage. Go ahead.
Oh, man. It's week 13 in the NFL. A week that brings a lot of fun and a lot of important matchups around the league. But here on the Behind the Back pod, this week in particular means a lot more for you and I. That is because at 1:25 on Sunday, December 3rd, the San Francisco 49ers play the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it's going to be pouring down rain.
That's what they're saying. It's a heavy rain, definitely some showers. So
Yeah.
sucks.
So that's gonna be fun. Definitely gonna be a game in the trenches. But I'm gonna start off by asking you, brother. It's Thursday right now. How do you feel? How you feeling?
As the week has gone on, I was not as into it as you were going into this based off of our conversations. But now it's Thursday. I'm locked in. I'm feeling ready. The odds are stacked against us, but I'm ready for this. This is going to be fun. Like, there's a lot to unpack with this game. There's a lot of history, obviously, recently that comes into play here. But, thinking about it, this is the 2023 Eagles versus the 2023 Niners. This will be as close to a real matchup as we've gotten over the past 2 years. So I'm just excited. I want to gauge you. How have you been this week? Pumped up for the game.
Honestly, like I started off for majority of the season, I was like, I just want to get to this week so that I can I root for my team, have my team win. Like that's ultimately what I want to happen so that I can in my eyes, shut up Eagles fans because they've done nothing but talk. But I can't sit here and say that Niners fans haven't been talking either. It's ever since last year, leading up to that game, with all the hype that was surrounding it, getting to that NFC Championship for my side, for a Niners fan perspective, to lose your quarterback in the first drive of the game, not have a shot at the game for the rest of it because the next quarterback up was shaking. He was so scared and then got a concussion to the point he couldn't return. We didn't have a quarterback. And then all year long after that, and then all year long this year, I hear nothing but 31-7, 31-7. Really? Yeah, 31-7 because we didn't have a freaking quarterback, man.
Right.
That's what's gotten me heated and ready for this week, is because we're going to have a quarterback, knock on wood. We're going to have a team with pretty much all of our healthy guys. Like we have a couple guys who aren't as important, but definitely are role players that are questionable going into this game. Status is pending. Obviously, it's Thursday, but this is the dream scenario as a Niners fan. Like we have everything lined up, ready to face you guys, and this is probably a bigger matchup for Niners fans than it is for Eagles fans because obviously you guys have that upper edge on the trash talk right now because you have that 31-7 in your back pockets. But dude, I'm stoked. I'm excited for this week. I'm excited for this game. I'm feeling confident going in. I'm trying not to be too confident, obviously. But but especially
Not based
after
off your score.
yeah, well,
Okay.
we'll get into that. But coming off of that Thanksgiving win against Seattle, that was awesome. That was huge. We didn't play like a perfect game by any stretch, but we played enough of a good game to still separate ourselves from Seattle enough where it was like this is an elite team, the Niners. So I'm feeling good.
Well, that's good. I definitely there's a lot of the main thing I've been hearing from the Eagles' perspective because I know with the Niners side it's so hard to that's a tough the way that game went. It didn't feel like a real game, and unfortunately, it's just the way it went for the Eagles. The Eagles ended up going to the Super Bowl. That won't change, and it's very much you guys are in the same position we were just a couple weeks ago when we had to go up against our own demons with the Chiefs, and we had to prove that we could go on the road, beat them, silence the doubters in that sense, and prove that we are a legitimate team. You guys are now in that spot where you get a real chance to face the Eagles, and the Eagles aren't as healthy. They're getting hurt at they're dealing with some key injuries at the worst time, but it's also this game's going to mean a lot. And this game still means a lot for both teams because is a this is a prime number 1 seed position game. And so for the Eagles it still gives them enough juice to really want to go hard in this game. But the problem is going to be the Eagles have just played 2 very intense games, emotionally intense games in a very short amount of time, one of them being in an overtime game against Buffalo last week, which was awesome to see. It was awesome to see. It allows that room for error this week. But with everything like with this matchup, I think it's just going to set the stage for January when the Eagles and the Niners inevitably end up meeting in the conference championship, because that's where I believe this is going after the way the season has been going so far. So what for me, like I've there's been a lot of talk. So we're gonna talk definitely keys to the game, things that are important. But what the main discussion that I've been hearing has been the MVP conversation. So we're gonna start with that. And this happens throughout the course of the year as games go on. There's always going to be a week where like, oh, this game could decide who's going to be the front runner for MVP. There's 2 stories. Brock has been playing statistically like the MVP of the National Football League. Jalen Hurts has won the most games and has shown up in the biggest situations possible. So, do you think that with the way the standings are right now in the MVP, so it's Jalen Hurts is number 1, then it's Mahomes, then Lamar and Dak are tied, and then it's Brock and Tua right there the same. Do you think Brock is too low? Do you think Brock needs to be higher? Do you think this game, if he wins, will change that?
So it comes down to what we talked about a few weeks ago, and that's that Brock needs to lead his team from behind. And obviously, he hasn't been put in that situation yet. He's been behind, but he hasn't led them to a victory. But there's also some asterisks, and I will stand by that in at least 2 of those losses. Actually, all 3. The first one against the Browns, he led us down the field to have what should have been a pretty easy field goal, and our kicker just missed it. All right, let's move on. Next week. The next week, he was playing a great game that was against the Vikings. And in, I think it was like 3rd quarter, maybe the 4th quarter, he went down with that concussion. He hit his head. He stayed in, but he was noticeably a different quarterback and a different, he was playing a lot different. And he made some mistakes, crucial mistakes, didn't get a chance to win that game. He had the chance, but he didn't actively take it. Then you look at Cincinnati, he makes a 1-week return off of a concussion, which is really already surprising to see considering what happened with Tua last year. So you have this happen, Brock comes back, and he was noticeably still a different quarterback. Like you could tell and I don't give the credit to the Bengals defense there, because when I look at Brock and how he played in that game, I'm like, this isn't the same Brock. And obviously we were struggling in the sense of we didn't have Debo, we didn't have Trent, 2 key guys. Christian McCaffrey was dealing with that oblique issue, which he still has, but he's had a bye in between where he's gotten some rest. So there's factors into that. But since then, we came back and we're dominating. We really haven't played from behind. We picked right back up with that 30-point per game average that I said we would have if all our key guys are healthy. So it's tough. It's tough in that sense, just because he's never necessarily gotten put in a good situation in a losing situation.
Right, and that's again, as a team, that's something you can't necessarily control. Like, yeah, you can control as much as you can, but being put in those situations isn't just something that happens every single game. Like there,
Right.
and when our teams are as good as they are, they usually tend. Now, the Eagles have been the complete opposite in that sense, where they just maybe they just wanted to flip the script this year and say, "Hey, let's go down 10 points, see if we can come back this time." Like it's been a very herky jerky style for the Eagles, and the Niners have kind of swapped roles in the sense that they are dominating teams. They have the highest point differential,
Yeah.
either that or the second, whatever you and the Cowboys have. And like and the difference between the Niners and the Cowboys is the strength of victories that you guys have had. The Niners are in just in the NFC, the Niners and the Eagles are third and fourth in terms of strength of victories.
Mm-hmm.
And the Cowboys are like second to last in the conference. And that's again, you don't pick your schedule, but when you go up against good teams, how do you do? And you guys have beaten very good teams and have done so very convincingly. And your losses are again when Brock has everybody, when the whole team is there, they haven't lost. And that has been a thing that still hasn't been proven that anybody can beat you guys when the whole roster, at least the offensive side, is there and healthy and ready to go. So that'll be something that's tested. And the Eagles, on the opposite hand, Jalen Hurts is getting all this credit for winning, even though through the first 3.5 quarters of most of these games, he's playing terribly, like not good at all. Defenses look like they solved them. It's easy to say that this game is over, like they're giving up. And then for the last quarter and a half, he plays better than any quarterback in the league. And it's, I guess in those moments, it just shows like the resiliency. And it's not, so you and I had this conversation when we talk about, whenever we're hanging out or whatever, but we had this conversation of, oh, is this team like last year's Minnesota team? Is this year like the 2018 Seattle Seahawks, who also won 10 out of 11 one-score games? And I think the only argument I have against that is the Eagles are bucking the trend historically in the sense of, first off, none of those other teams prior to were 10-1. Like prior to getting to this point, they haven't had a level of sustained success. The Eagles are 27-2 in Jalen's last 29 starts. Like, if the Eagles have won the Super Bowl last year, and I understand that's a big if, it works the same way as the Niners in that sense. It's a big if. But if the Eagles won the Super Bowl last year, everyone would be talking about this team as going through one of the greatest stretches of success in modern NFL history. Like the teams just don't win the way the Eagles have been winning, and the Eagles are the first team in NFL history to win 5 straight games when down at halftime. And the Eagles are 5-0 after trailing at halftime this year. Rest of the league is 35 for 129, and that's 20%. So they're just doing things that just don't make sense. And when people say that history might catch up to the Eagles in terms of, oh, these 10-1 teams haven't matched up like this, they usually go out in the divisional round. I can understand why, but I just don't see it. And it's because everything that should say the Eagles are going to lose, the Eagles are going to eventually tap out, every time that looks like they're going to, they just don't. And it's annoying. It must be annoying to watch as a opposing fan because it just doesn't make any sense. And as for me watching, it's stressful to say the least.
Yeah, I would say as an opposing fan, you struck it on the head in the fact that I believe the last 2 weeks you guys should have lost those games, and Jalen should have never even gotten the opportunity to march down the field and put his team in a winning situation. Because if I look at the Chiefs game, Mahomes threw it to I can't remember his name right now.
MVS, Marquez
Yeah,
Valdez-Scantling.
and he was more on target smacking his helmet against the sign in the locker room than catching that ball. And then when I look at last week against the Bills, Josh Allen, he threw to the inside the numbers rather than throwing to the outside where his receiver was going. And that's like one of the rules is like, why are you doing that?
I also have a question for that game, just because we both watched it. Considering how well Josh Allen played, right? Like Josh Allen played one of the best games that he's played. Do you think with 20 seconds to go with a timeout, do you kneel there? Were you
No,
confused when they kneeled?
yeah, it was mind boggling to me considering the history that the Bills have just with one team alone in one game. And then beyond that, when I look at Allen's record in overtime as
That
a
was telling.
coach, I would be like, I don't want to go to I don't want to go to overtime with my quarterback. I trust my quarterback, but I don't want to go to overtime considering our record with this QB. And
Yeah.
kneeling it down in a situation where all you had to get was a field goal, I I
And they had a
just don't
timeout.
I just don't understand that. I didn't understand it at the time. And they honestly they deserved to lose that game because of how they played that and how they played overtime.
And yeah, and the end of the game was also right before that was also very interesting too, because they chose to give Jake Elliott a timeout to collect themselves and this was all to like ice him even though the clock was stopped. It wasn't
Right.
like so on that last play, just a quick recap. They AJ Brown almost catches it. They knock the ball out versus just letting him catch it and tackling him in bounds to let the clock run because the Eagles had no timeouts. But instead, the play's dead, there's no time. Jake has to kick a 59-yard field goal anyway. So you could have had 20 seconds and two timeouts, which that gives you like three plays to run. So so that confused me too. So when they iced Jake, and it wasn't even normally when you ice a kicker, you're going to do it right as they're already kicking, like right before the play gets off, right? But they did it before they even had time to get set up. So it was like you just let Jake Elliott collect himself a little bit.
Yeah,
And
it was
yeah,
poor decision making on the Bills' end for sure.
and that I can understand why people are like, dang, why does this always happens when people play the Eagles? Like what is happening here? Like Jerry Jones says, why is this happening to us? He literally said that.
I think it, and honestly, it does boil down to where I will give you guys credit it boils down to you're in opposing teams' heads in that sense. You know, other teams know that they have to take risks and do things a little bit differently than normal, than business as usual when it comes to playing the Philadelphia Eagles. And so it almost pulls them off of their normal decision making and things that would be a more comfortable decision. And thus you find these interesting scenarios that the Bills are in, that the Chiefs are in,
The Cowboys
where
were
it's
in.
the Cowboys exactly. Like it's different. And that's one area I can see the Niners struggling with is I know that teams even this year have pulled us out of our comfort zone and forced us to change up our game plan. Obviously, having key guys out changes up your game plan too. But I'm actually talking more on the defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
Like where we have succeeded, in earlier in the season, in the first 5 wins, we weren't succeeding after, the next 3 weeks after that. It was like a complete ghost and an empty shell of what our defensive strategy was. And obviously, in the addition of Chase Young, it's a little bit different now. I mean, it's a lot different actually. If you look at us statistically, defensively, we're one of the top teams since then. But it's playing you guys it forces every team to play differently.
For sure. And I think an underrated factor with having Chase Young is I think that's a huge help for the Niners game plan because you have somebody who has played the Eagles twice now as a member of the Commanders, and now he gets a third chance. Now, in either game, he didn't do that well. He did get a sack on the first game, but the second game, Jordan Mailata did a good job holding him. That'll be a matchup to see. But yeah, the Eagles, I don't understand. I think it, and again, the way the Eagles played, people like you mentioned, people just aren't used to. Like it's stressful when you have to, you have to hold the Eagles to less than 4 yards on first and second down to give yourself a fair chance. Because if it's third and three, the Eagles can run, set themselves up for fourth and one, and then you're just starting all over again.
Right.
Um, and the Niners are just so. What the Niners are really good at is just following the script, and Brock is able to execute so well, create for himself. He takes risks. He's not afraid to, go for it now, especially now that he's learned this offense so much more and they're adding new wrinkles. But the thing is, like, the thing that keeps blowing my mind is the Eagles are trash on the defense in terms of their pass defense, but every single time we're getting gashed, once that red zone defense seems to come up, we always seem to make a clutch play. Something just happens where, this drive stalls, Eagles get a, timely turnover, timely fourth down stop. I don't understand. like so, I mean, the Bills threw for 500. They had 500 total yards on us. They outgained the Eagles by 127 yards, but the Eagles still put up 34 points on them, and they only
Yeah.
got 31. So it's like that's where what I've heard a lot for this matchup is, you know, this pass offense is going to gash the Eagles. I'm not really. That's the one thing I'm like truly like nervous about. If this game gets away from the Eagles, it's going to be because Brock is just dicing us up, gashing early. So let's get into that. Like, what matchups for you are the most important in this matchup?
Honestly, it was crazy. I've been looking at so many reports and articles and just kind of doing my reading up on this game and each team. And where I keep coming back to in terms of the most key matchup, and now even more so with the rain, is those lines,
Mm-hmm.
those offensive and defensive lines. This game in the rain is going to come down to that. It's both the Eagles and the 49ers have a very talented defensive front. Um, San Francisco had a season high 6 sacks against Seattle last Thursday and 15 sacks in 3 games since acquiring Chase Young. So that's one of those enormous boosts that obviously going into a big game like this, we're going to look to continue building off of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's really going to come down to who protects their quarterback better, and that's where I get nervous because Brock is one of the more pressured quarterbacks in the league. However, he's also one of the best. Actually, he is statistically the best at handling that pressure in terms of completion rating and at least getting positive yards off of it, whether it's rushing or whatever. Um, I find myself not worrying about anything else. Like I want CMC to do his thing. I want George Kittle to be a factor in this game, but it's just in a rain game, it's running the ball. I mean, it's getting dirty. It's getting into each other's chest. Like it's gonna be a tough to move the ball kind of game. And where I made a score prediction, I made a very large score prediction. I also thought, I still think, and I will stand on it, that the Niners are gonna. I said win by 35-24, but
Mm-hmm.
this was not taking into account the rain and what that's going to be like. I know what rain games are like for the 49ers. I still trust them in the rain, but I don't know if I trust Brock as much. So that's definitely an area where you want to really boost him into the MVP conversation. Okay, throw for 300 plus yards in the rain, in the pouring down rain, and let's limit Jalen Hurts to 200. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's where I'm at, key matchup wise.
No, I agree. I think that will be the biggest difference maker. Will be the matchup to watch is the Eagles' defensive line versus the Niners' offensive line, and it's only
Offensive. Yep.
because versus and that works in tandem with Brock versus the Eagles' pass defense, right? So it's those are the biggest weaknesses, and if one can hold, it'll expose the other. So if the Eagles D line just can't get home, Brock's going to expose our back end. But if the Eagles D line can get home, we might have the opportunity to expose the offense or limit them and maybe opportunistic create opportunities to force a turnover, an untimely play, or just mess up the timing of everything. And again, the Eagles give up a ton of yards, but against those opponents that are above 500, the Eagles actually allow 19 points a game. So it's like we've held the Mike McDaniel offense of the Dolphins. We held them to 10 offensive points, and we also held the Rams to I forget exactly what their score was, but it wasn't that many either. So it's like we've had success with the descendants of the Kyle Shanahan style systems, but also Kyle Shanahan owns the Seahawks, and our defensive coordinator Sean Desai was last with the Seahawks last year.
I
So
mean, also look at the talent level that Kyle Shanahan has versus the other two guys.
it's true, and that's the difference too. This year, the Eagles' defense just isn't stacked up the way it was last year, and Bradbury and Slay have declined a little bit in their play. Now they've been fine, but not what they were last year in their ability to just lock down. And the Eagles are not getting sacks at the level they were last year. They had 70 sacks last year. That's like most since the '85 Bears, and that just wasn't gonna happen again. Teams are prepared now, especially with a guy like Brock. That worries me too. Like the reason like Sam Howell diced us up was because he's getting the ball out point like super fast. And I know
Yeah.
with this offense, you guys can do that. You can get the ball out quick. That's not an issue. So that's where you guys can neutralize the Eagles. And that's the part that freaks me out. I don't know. The big difference maker is going to be McCaffrey because the Eagles' run defense does a good job. Now, the rushing yard numbers wouldn't suggest that over the past few weeks, but we have Josh Allen was a huge reason for last week. Now, the Eagles only allow like 3.8 yards a carry to running backs. So if we find a way to limit McCaffrey and force Brock to throw more, that'll be more opportunities for potential turnovers. That's where, I think I saw a stat where the Niners attempt the fewest passes because of how balanced you guys are, because you have Christian McCaffrey, right? And that sets up your whole offense. So if we can limit McCaffrey, make the Niners more one dimensional. That'll be the best shot we have at winning this game. But the problem is, if you guys get out to a lead early, and you guys seem to be the one team that I would have a hard time believing that we could actually survive that. If we went down by 2 touchdowns on you guys, I think it's over. That's
You
where
guys
my
are, yeah, and I feel you on that. But you and the Eagles are way more likely to win a game from behind than the Niners are, at least from what I've seen this season. I mean, it seems like the Eagles almost find their comfort level playing from behind. It's like
yeah.
they get to a point where they're like, all right, well, we're losing. It is what it is. We're still leading the NFC. Like, let's just, we won't hang it up, but we're gonna take some shots. We're gonna do some weird things. Oh, it's 4th down on our own 30. Fuck it, tush push. You know what I mean? Like, it's that kind of mentality that gets you guys back into a game and gets you into a scenario where then you guys have a chance to win it at the end. And for whatever reason, you guys seem to still pull it out. And I haven't seen that from the Niners. The Niners have gone down in particular in 3 games and lost 3 games. And
Yep.
I'm kind of like in that situation where I'm like, if we go down early to you guys, even if you guys start with the ball on Sunday and we get it
I
in the
hope we
second
don't.
half, I know, but here's my thinking. If you guys start with the ball and you get a touchdown on it, or you get a field goal, even a field goal, I'm gonna be like, I don't like this because I
Mhm.
really don't. I don't want to give that Philly crowd any energy. I want to, from my perspective, I want all the energy sucked out of that stadium as early as possible.
Mhm. There's going to be a huge showing of Niner fans. There was a report saying that there was going to be at least 30% of the fans were supposed to be Niners fans, which is great. I love that. Brings
It's the
the
best traveling
the
fan base.
the rivalry is going to come together there. The Eagles fans are going to want to show up more. There's going to be a lot of red. This is going to be a pretty scene for the holidays. I'm excited,
Yeah,
but you have a good point, and Kyle Shanahan's record of 0-38 when down by 8 or more after in the second half is concerning. That's something that he hasn't gotten over yet, and that will be something to look out for because the Eagles are weird. The Eagles will score on their first 2 possessions. One of their first 2 possessions, they'll score either a touchdown or a field goal, and then they just kind of go like they shut their eyes and play offense for 2 other quarters, and then they wake up and they're like, okay, we can try now. And
the
it's
Niners do that too.
yeah, and it's weird. It's weird how, I don't know, I don't understand how they do it. I think the Eagles lead the league in second half offense in terms of points in the second half, and it's just I don't understand why, and I don't understand why we just don't open it up all the time. I just don't know if that's just a product of adjusting to the other team, because that's what the Eagles do. They've just shown that they can adjust. And this is going to be a huge coaching matchup. This is Nick Sirianni, the emotional coach who has a game plan and can motivate these guys out of a hole, versus Kyle Shanahan, who's has a plan. He needs it to go right, and he hasn't coached well when it doesn't. So we need the rain and the weather, this has everything to make it a slop fest. Things aren't going to go as cleanly as we could plan for. So who knows what's going to happen? This is going to be fun. Like literally, like all of America is going to be watching this game. Like this is on the broadcast map. I feel bad for there was I think it was the Rams and the Browns are playing at the same time
Yeah.
at that time, and there was literally on the broadcast map where the Eagles and the Niners were red. The entire United States was red except for a bit of LA and a bit of Cleveland. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry, you guys. So it and every game the Eagles have been in this year, well, not every, but a lot of the major now that they're playing the tougher teams, they've been one of the most viewed broadcasts out there. Like the Eagles and the Bills was huge; they had 30 million viewers, and the Chiefs one, obviously, that one was wild. This one is going to be wild. Everyone is going to tune into this. There's a reason. The reason this one wasn't flexed, I heard that was a comment. People were saying, "Why don't you flex this game?" Because networks have the ability to protect one game each year to flex, and
Yeah.
Fox
Fox
had this
protected it.
game, and they're like, "We're not giving this game
That was
up."
brilliant.
Mhm.
Brilliant move by them.
Oh yeah, they knew they know how to get the money. This is going to work out perfectly. Now I
Yeah.
did see the Eagles get flexed 2 weeks from now against the Seahawks on Monday night, which I guess will kind of work okay because that gives the Eagles an extra day of rest, which we desperately need. But with
Hmm.
the next couple of weeks are going to be tough. You guys have the rest advantage. That is also something we can't overlook. The Niners coming off of 9 days or more rest are like unstoppable. You guys win by like an average of 17 points when you get 9 days or more of rest. So it's that scares me. And the Eagles defensive team just played 90 snaps in an overtime game against the Bills. So I know, they're athletes. That's just how you have to do it. But with two mentally exhausting games, three technically, but the bye week helped. But like, I thought last week was going to be the letdown game, but this week has all the makings of a letdown game now. But I think thanks to the Niners players chirping, Niners fans being hyped, and the Eagles players are getting into it too. So I think it'll still be competitive. And I think if the weather is what we think it is, if it looked anything like it did last week, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and it better not. I
I
don't
know.
like rain games with Brock Purdy because he's got smaller hands than your average quarterback. And I've already seen just when he's trying to pump fake with the ball, his hand slips off of it.
That's
It's,
what happened in Cleveland, right?
exactly. Like there's scenarios in rain games that I don't necessarily trust with Brock. So you want to talk about boosting him into that MVP conversation, lead your team down the field for over 300 yards in the rain game,
Mm-hmm.
and or lead him to a game-winning drive. I think that'll really separate himself from the rest of the pack because then the statistics go out the window. We already know what he is statistically. Now it's shit. He's kind of a leader. Like this might actually be a legit guy.
Right, and that's the difference. Brock and Dak are in the same conversation, but for different reasons. Brock still
Yeah.
needs to prove himself in certain things, versus Dak has already made a name for himself. But they're playing, for lack of a better word, tomato cans. They're playing garbage teams. Like there was a stat that for the Cowboys that through the span of like 11, 12 weeks, they're the only team to have not beaten a team over 500 during the span.
Yep.
And the two games they had the chance to, the Niners and the Eagles, they lost. So it's like, and I mean, the Seahawks, I don't know what the score is in that
They're
game.
losing 21-20 right now to him.
Seriously, Cowboys?
Yep.
This is huge for both teams. The Seahawks need to survive, especially since they have us two next. And then the
Mm-hmm.
Cowboys, if they lose, that makes me happy because that just helps the NFC East even more. Oh,
Right.
that'd be huge. Oh, keep tabs on this as we go. But okay, so let's talk a little bit about the implications of this game in terms of how confident would you feel about securing the 1 seed if you win? And in reverse, how would you feel if you lose? How confident do you feel in your ability to get the 1 seed?
If we win this game, I will feel confident no matter where we lie.
Okay.
Because we'd be going into, if we win this game, we're going to be first or second in the NFC. No question. Like, we don't fall back to third, in my eyes, right? Barring injury and random circumstance. So I would then feel like we have proven we can go into Philadelphia and get a win in hopefully a convincing way or in any way, shape, or form. And I'll be like, all right, like we can get it done at full strength. So give me whatever seeding. I will still want and feel like we have that first seed probably more on lock than the Eagles would
Mm-hmm.
coming out of that week, just considering you guys have the Cowboys next, and that's not going to be an easy game. They're going to be ready. They're going to be in
At home, yeah.
Dallas. Yeah, like it's going to be a different story. And also, I saw a stat in this Cowboys game that
Mm-hmm.
they're like 19-1 on turf,
Yeah, they're
but like have a
unbelievable.
terrible record on grass, which is hilarious.
And it's interesting, and they're also just dominant at home. The fact that the
Yeah.
Seahawks are where they're at right now, people thought they were going to dust them. So what's the quarter?
So it's 10 minutes left in the third, and the Seahawks just scored a touchdown.
Oh, let's go,
28 to
dude.
20.
Everyone's talking about Deron Bland, Defensive Player of the Year. He's getting exposed by DK out there, and I mean,
Yeah.
in the same light, he got exposed by Devontae and AJ. So, um, so I if we that's where I'm kind of falling on this. So now this game matters because if the Cowboys lose, I'm feeling even better no matter what happens this weekend because like you, we would be in either the 1 or the 2 seed. Now, and we would, but having this game just like the past couple weeks, I'm saying like if we got this game, this sets us up. If we win this game, I'm so confident in our ability to get the 1 seed because after the Cowboys game, then we play the Seahawks and the Seahawks are scrappy, but I believe we can beat them, and then we play the Giants, Cardinals, Giants. The only concern I have with the Giants is having to play on that freaking stadium and
Yeah,
hoping our guys get out healthy.
exactly.
And but I'm confident. Like I feel good, and again, I feel good even if we lose because we'll get a full week. We'll go to Dallas. I don't know how I don't know how we'll do, but even if we lose, I don't know how that would work then for the common opponent tiebreaker in terms of the Niners and the Eagles. So that's the part that I think
Yeah,
because you guys would have won the head to head. So if we both go 14-3, you guys get it. But
we
if
win it. Yep.
that's the yeah, because common opponent right now we have the edge because you guys lost to the Vikings and we beat the Vikings. And you guys beat the Cowboys, so did we. But I don't know how that works for divisional matchups either. But 14-3, I think is going to get the 1 seed at or 15-2, which is wild to think that it's going to take that much of an effort by either one of our teams to get the 1 seed. And the 1 seed too, just to get a bye would be huge. I think for the Eagles it would be huge in the sense of just getting their guys healthy again. So this game we're not going to have Goddard. It's been reported he didn't practice either one of those days. He wanted to come back, but the training staff was like, "Nope, you're going to wait till next week. He'll be ready for Dallas." And Lane Johnson, he says he's ready to go, and I trust that he's ready to go. He wanted to play in that game last week. It was a very similar situation. He woke up and he felt like his groin was a little weird, felt a little tear in like the spot where
Didn't
he
he
got
like
surgery.
re-aggravate the scar tissue?
Yeah, so that's what
Yeah.
it was. And he said he did the warm ups, and he's like, I could go. And our guys were like, just be smart. You guys you played a tough game on Monday night. You don't want to risk it. You got the Niners next week. Focus on that. And Fletcher Cox he didn't practice either, so it's looking like he might not be able to play either. So that will
Damn.
suck. But we are getting Milton Williams back from the concussion, so at least our defensive tackle spot will at least have some rotation. So and all of our guys that were limited, so like AJ, Devontae, all those guys, they're back, they're ready to go. So I think they were just giving them the extra day because they've just been through a lot. They've played a lot of football in the past 13 days. So but Fletcher Cox is also one of those players that I'm like, he could go a whole week of practice and then still like without practicing and then still go in the game if he wanted to. He's just that kind of player. So but yeah, no, I think the matchups that mess with me the most are just it sounds old school, but it is going to be a battle of the trenches in the run game. Like that's just if the Eagles can get going on the ground, that can change the whole look. And I know the Niners defensive front is going to have to decide whether they really want to put the pressure on Jalen Hurts and just pin their ears back and go for him, and that could create room for them to attack on the ground. Like this will be a big test for you guys against running quarterbacks. So
Yep.
how that goes is going to be interesting. So what are you? Like my big I don't know how to describe it because like I'm so confident in Jalen, like to be able to just rally even when we are down, even though I'm personally not confident in the games as they go. Like I'm freaking out inside. I'm like, wow, this is we can't win games if we play like this. I'm like losing my mind, and then they come back and I'm like, oh yeah, this is how it goes. Like I'm nervous. I'm nervous for this game. this has all the makings of a letdown game, but I'm also confident in the fact that we can win this kind of game. So I think
Yeah,
it matters more because it's the 1 seed.
and for sure, the other thing to keep in mind too is, um, you guys have set yourself up for a loss, like in the sense of you can take a loss and still,
Right.
and still have a pretty good shot at the 1 seed. Um, from my perspective, kind of like what I said, if the Niners win this game, I'll feel confident in getting the 1 seed just because we'll be that much closer to your tail. And the last really tough game that we'll have to play, obviously we have 3 divisional games. That's going to be weird because divisional
Mm-hmm.
games are weird.
Yeah.
But our division is a little bit easier, and we did prove that we can dominate Seattle, and that's probably the best, the other best team in that division. But
And it's going to be at home this time too, right? So I mean
right, right.
that'll help too. So
But I do find myself nervous against the Ravens because the Ravens are looking like the second best team in the league at times.
at
Um,
times,
and I'm wondering, I'm like, what version of Baltimore will we get that week, and what version of the 49ers will show up? Obviously, we're a few weeks away from that. But we're on the bird gauntlet right now.
yes, you
So
are. I saw that.
I'm just hoping to keep eating since Turkey Day. That
No, for yeah,
also, that eating turkey in Seattle. Oh my god, dude, that felt so good. It's been so many years since they ate turkey on our home field, and they just rubbed it in our face ever since. To be able to go into Seattle, take care of business the way we did in a dominating fashion, and
mm-hmm.
eat turkey, whether it's dry, tasteless, or whatever, and then
McCaffrey
walk
said it
into the
tasted
locker room
great.
with it. Did he? Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
he said it was a super good turkey, super well prepared. He was surprised.
feels good, baby.
Yeah, I bet. I know that's cool, and that'd be really cool if they did an Eagles Niners Thanksgiving game. That'd be very fun too.
Yeah.
Um, but I think this is setting up. They won't do it yearly. That's not how it works. But just though I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of the Eagles Niners matchups because this is just a rivalry that people want to see and they can't ignore anymore
Is
because
it a
of the.
rivalry? Would you say it's a rivalry separate
I would
from our podcast?
I would say it is, and it's only because of rivalries aren't just the product that it's on the field, it's the animosity or the respect that other teams have, that one team has for the other. They both feel as though the other team matches them. And the Eagles players, they understand the fact that the Niners are who the Niners are, a great team. And they don't hold, again, like last year was just kind of fluky, but going into that matchup, both teams understood who they were going up against, and they circled this game because this is a chance for both teams to kind of prove themselves. When you get to go in this matchup, it can turn into a rivalry, especially when you're in the same conference. It's different for like the Eagles and Chiefs. That's not really a rivalry because, well, it can be, but those two teams don't hate each other the way I can sense the juice that the Niners and the Eagles have. So, but I think yes, it's a rivalry, and I think Sunday's going to prove that. So.
I agree. I think the combination of the trash talk and the respect level probably puts it in enough light to call it a rivalry. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say that you're our deepest, darkest rival, and you probably couldn't say the same about the Niners, right?
Right.
I would say yours is probably the Cowboys.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So for us, it's probably the Seahawks,
That makes
just
sense.
because of how far back that's gone and how much I hate the Seahawks. But no, that's a really good point. You brought some great points there. I just I'm excited, man. This is gonna
I
be
know.
a fun week. I'm nervous. I'm pumped. I It won't be the end of the world for me losing this game
Hmm.
because I will feel confident that we'll have the 2 seed on lock. And regardless of what the score ends, even if we get dominated in Philly, I will still feel like we'll have a chance going into Philly because football is really weird like that. One game can be played this way, and then you match up in the same place 4 weeks later. Situationally, it could be completely flipped. Like,
Correct. Yeah.
that's kind of the beautiful thing about sports.
Hmm.
I could say football, but it kind of goes in every sport. So
I agree. And again, I think the cool thing about these two teams is this matchup isn't going to be it. it almost feels inevitable that you know barring anything major for either one of our teams, like they're almost destined to face each other again.
It's a preview.
And based off of how it's going, I do believe at this point it would be played at the Linc, but I'm also not sure. And if it, I can only imagine going to Levi's. But the thing is, I'm also not worried if we do, because we could go. We went to Arrowhead and we were able to take a win there, and that only improved my confidence. And I know exactly what you're going through in terms of what this means, in terms of what this could feel like, because if you guys win on our home field, that's going to make you feel so much better no matter where you go. You're like, we can win any game now. Like, I know you already feel that with the way you've been dominating opponents. And that's another thing when it comes to like whoever wins this game is going to be the favorite to come out of the NFC in everyone's eyes for the Super Bowl. Like, they're going to be like, oh, this is it. Like, they proved that whatever. But I don't know. Like, and the same thing for the MVP combo. It's going to be interesting to see, what comes from this. Like, is it going to be a Jalen versus, Brock game? Like, I don't know what to think there. So, like,
Or is it a CMC against Swift?
exactly. So, like, I don't know. It's this. There's so many fun wrinkles to this game, and I'm really
Yeah.
excited for it. And I mean, a lot's at stake. I mean, Jalen Hurts has won 14 straight against 500 opponents. That's the longest in NFL history. Like, things of that nature. And even if they lose, even if he loses, they lose. Like, 27-3 in 30 games is just unbelievable. And 28-2 in 30 games, unbelievable. Like, I'm confident in our team, and it's hard. Like, and again, all the analytics suggest, all the numbers suggest that the Niners are just a more complete team and will come in and just rout the Eagles based off of what everyone's saying. The Niners are more, all the advanced statistics. Niners have the, a top 5 offense, top 5 defense. Like, the Eagles don't. The Eagles have a top 5 offense, but a top, 20 defense. And that's just like, those, and people are using that as their main argument, and I understand. But despite all of that, the Eagles are 10-1 against the Chiefs, against the Bills, against the Cowboys, against the Dolphins. Like, we have beaten super quality opponents, just like the Niners have. They've beaten the Steelers, the Jags, the Cowboys. Trying to think who else was above 500 you guys beat.
I
And I'm
mean,
not.
we beat Seattle.
Seattle, there you go. Yeah, so Seattle, like, you guys have beaten quality opponents too. So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I just don't know.
for me, I've played with this I guess for the past 2 weeks, because unfortunately last week even I was like looking more forward to this game. I try not to do that, but it's tough. But but I was finding myself looking at it, and all year long, I'm not sure if you can say the same, probably can, but we've been focused on our top 2 teams as the Niners and the Eagles, right? And
Correct.
so
Yeah.
we've been keeping up with those teams and making sure to, if we can't catch the game because it's not televised or whatever the fact, we watch the full play breakdown, like the full game, play by play and blah, blah, blah. So I feel like I've got a kind of a different perspective on the Eagles, and you have a different perspective on the Niners. So I'm going to say something that you probably won't agree with, but I do feel like the Niners, in their record right now, is more dominant than the Eagles in their 10-1 record because of the way that we have been winning games. Those 3 losses, there were some very, very key players out and some situations and scenarios that played out that just everything was against us. And yet we still found ourselves in at least two of those games, not at least, in 2 of those games with a situation to win.
That's fair. I
look at it and I'm like, okay, we've got all our key guys going into this game. We've still been able to put up 30 points every single week that we have somebody, all our key guys there and not anybody key out. And I look at it and I'm like, I really don't see a scenario where the Eagles could stop that. And that's why I had the score in 35-24, because when I look at the Eagles and their offense, there's really unfortunate injuries in their offense right now in Dallas Goedert that it's tough to see the Eagles putting up X amount of points against the Niners right now, especially with the way that defense has been rolling. And the secondary, since the bye week, for the Niners has been on fire. Like they've actually been really freaking good. Like they've shown up. And that's definitely a testament to what I was saying coming out of that trade is what does that do? It saves us at least a second in terms of we put pressure on the quarterback that much more. We're generating that much more pressure and actually finishing those plays.
Yeah.
Because prior to that trade, I even said, I think right when that trade happened, we generated the most pressures, but we just couldn't finish a play. Since then, we've got 15 sacks.
Yeah,
Like
like that's not. Yeah, you can't
we're
ignore that.
finishing those plays, and it's Jalen Hurts is a freaking mastermind. Will he will take a completely broken play and turn it into 24 yards. I've seen him do it week in and week out. But we've also played some quarterbacks this year that could do that in a similar way, and they haven't done that. I haven't seen enormous plays against the Niners, a healthy Niners team, where I'm like, wow, this team's really just dominating us right now. Like, it's tough. It's weird.
No, and I agree. I think the biggest difference, the thing that's helped you guys the most, was moving Ambry Thomas to the outside, so Deommodore
Yes.
Lenore could be the slot corner like that. Such a smart
That he was
move.
destined to be.
Yeah, exactly. So now you guys can play a little bit more your style, and again, Chase Young helps. You guys have figured it out. Obviously, if Hufanga was there, it'd be like awesome. But you're making do with what you have, which is great. And the Eagles are also in that light where they're making do with what they have. Zach Cunningham's going to be out, so now we're down to 2 off-ball linebackers. Like, hopefully, we can sign Shaq Leonard. Over the weekend, just hopefully chooses to, just for the depth, because at that point we just need more. It's going to matter moving forward. But this, and again, I understand. The weird part about these Eagles is, like, I think they're, to everyone, into like the sense that I'm getting when people talk about this team is that everyone believes they're like the most overrated 10-1 team. This is the vibe I'm receiving.
I feel that way. I
Which
got to admit it.
And okay, so let's break it down a little bit here, because so we talk about point differential. Now, out of all the 10-1 teams that have, I think there's been around like 30-ish 10-1 teams. There was a stat, I forget exactly what it was. The Eagles were second to last in point differential out of all those 10-1 teams. Now, that doesn't translate to the current NFL. They're about 7th or 8th. So they're not like, the Eagles aren't winning like 3-point games every single game. Like, but there was another stat too. Like, the past like decade of Super Bowl winners have had at least 6 double-digit victory wins. So that's been a thing that has happened for the past decade, and the Eagles only have 2 wins of double digits or more. So they're fighting history in that sense. But again, the Eagles just beat the Chiefs and the Bills without Dallas Goedert, and last week it was without Lane Johnson too. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, we're playing like garbage, but we're also not at full strength. And this also allows, Dallas is going to come back next week, so we get to have him back again, and that opens up our offense. We're not as efficient without him. Like, we're not good without him. Like, our blocking suffers a bit. We have to run different personnel, and he is a reliable pass catching option that opens up and can take advantage of defenses. He is being missed, and it's frustrating that I wish he could play this game, because it would help us a lot. Now, Devontae has received a lot of his targets and has delivered. I think that when you look at the way this team is, again, they're the only team in NFL history to be down at halftime 5 times, to be trailing and win the game. And they're 5-0. It's like, it's not like they've lost a couple here. They just haven't. So every time that I feel like, oh man, this is it, this is going to be the week, we find a way to be resilient. We find a way to come back. And some of those games, we're up by, 9 points or 10 points or 11, and then, a touchdown happens, and then it gets closer at the end. So for some periods of the game, I feel like the point differential is a little bit misleading. And when you watch the way they end up with these victories, it's interesting, because they end up just dominating a quarter and a half, to a point where if they did this for a whole game, they'd be putting up 50 points a game. But the Eagles have been so inconsistent. They haven't delivered a full game. And I think for the Niners, we've seen an A game. For the Cowboys, we've seen plenty because they're playing garbage teams. But like the Eagles have beat teams who have either been rolling or were looked like the better team for most of the game. And then the Eagles just come out. They're doing the things that like I hate to make this comparison, but they're doing the things that like the Tom Brady led Patriots did during their dynasty run. Like they looked
Mhm.
like at times that, oh man, this could be the game we're beating Brady. This could be the game. They're not playing that great. But then all of a sudden the Eagles they have the ball, they're down 3 points. They can take, we're like, oh man, Jalen Hurts has the ball with 1 possession, 2 possessions to go. There's going to be a super good chance that they're going to end up scoring or winning somehow. Like the confidence level that's come from that, I just Jalen's defined calling it character building games. It's just so interesting. Like the Eagles are so aware of the fact that they're so inconsistent right now, which I think is a good thing. I just don't. It's not the same as these Vikings. It's not that like the Vikings last year, they had the most epic comeback in NFL history when they went down by like 34 points or 33 points, whatever it was, to the Bills. But like the Eagles don't do that. They don't go down by 33 points. They haven't allowed themselves to get down by more than 10. So
Right.
the Eagles play like crap, still find a way to hang in there. So then when they wake up, they're clearly the better team by the end of it. And like, I just think for some reason, this team is going to defy history in that sense because most of the teams in our position, 10-1, the Eagles are the only home underdogs at 10-1 in NFL history. Like because all the other 10-1 teams that were underdogs were on the road. The Eagles are the first home underdog at 10-1, which is crazy. But I understand why the Niners are the hottest team in terms of just demolishing opponents in the past few weeks. So I just I can see us losing this game. The whole take of this is like we're due for a loss at some point. You can't win every game. That's just not how it works. But I'm the way that the Eagles have won, ugly, gritty, but have survived. I feel so much more confident knowing that all of a sudden this has turned into every single game the Eagles have now, they're never out of it. They've put themselves in that tier where they're never out of a game that they're in. And we can't say that about the Niners yet. Because the Niners haven't been able to get themselves out of that position before. So it's like the Eagles and they're doing that consistently. They're winning consistently, and they're winning the way like they're the second 10-1 team in back-to-back seasons since the 05-06 Colts. Like they're just doing things that don't make sense.
So there's two sides to it. I think for some fans, and I'm guilty of it at times, I look at the Eagles and I'm like, wow, like they get these calls that no one else gets, and there's certain calls that should be calls that we don't see called, and we're like, what, like that would
Absolutely.
be a call on my team. And so for us, it's like for other fans and for me, like I look at it and I'm like, this doesn't feel convincing because when I look at the Cowboys game, for instance, they had the chance to go down the field on a really weird final two possessions that were so uncharacteristic of either team, right?
Yeah.
And Cowboys put themselves in a really good position to win the game. They probably had like an 89, 91% chance at that point to win the game.
We both thought they were
And
going to.
yep, and then it was load the gun and shoot yourself in the foot, like over and over and over. And then they were penalized. And then it's like, okay, so the Eagles didn't win that game so much as the Cowboys lost. I hate to say that,
No, 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 no,
but
no. I
this is
agree.
where my head goes. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. Eagles came out with the dub. Doesn't feel convincing. Next game. Now we look at the Chiefs game. In the Chiefs game, and
Drop.
another drop pass, and I'm
There was
like,
and there's a
he's wide open, and
and there
there's
was a false start. There was an offsides that got called a false start. I agree.
yep. And there were plenty of holdings that weren't called on both sides, mind you. But
Mhm.
like, there's all these different scenarios in the Bills game, like that missed errant pass, and then the pass interference, and things that just really weird situations where, from an outside perspective, for somebody who wants the Eagles to lose,
Mhm.
it's like we're faced with why the hell haven't they lost to this point? Because of all these different scenarios, and yet they have still found a way to win, whether it's more so the other team or whatever the case may be.
And listen, like, and I you gotta I from like that perspective too. yeah, you also just can't plan for Jake Elliott hitting a 59-yard field goal in the rain.
No, and
Like,
that was elite. I will hand him that. Give
he
him
is
his
eight.
flowers.
He is 8 for 8 all time in game tying or game winning field goals.
That's
That
freaking
dude,
wild.
Jake Moody's on that track, bro. Let him have his time. Jake Elliott took a while. It took a few years, but that started in 2017. That was the
Yeah.
reason we launched our championship run, because he made the 63-yarder, and that just all of a sudden set his whole career on a freaking trajectory. Like, and I saw a thing with Jake Moody that he's like, I'm just waiting for my chance for that. And I mean, he had that once, but like, I'm confident that, he'll be fine. But like, those kind of things can change the course of games, to have somebody who can make those kind of plays. And again, you're right. Most of the wins that we've had, not most, but some of the wins that we've had, especially recently, have been self-inflicted wounds by the other team. But that's the thing. The Eagles also do self-inflicted wounds and somehow recover from it too. And the calls, I can understand. Last game, they missed a complete blatant horse collar on Josh Allen.
Yeah, that was the other
Like,
one.
there was and a blatant pass interference on Slay. Like, but at the same time, they also do stupid things like roughing the passer at the worst possible time. Like,
It's
and that
true.
happened in the Chiefs game too. So
Kelsey and his 2 false starts, which is
Kelsey in the 2 false
super
starts.
weird of him.
And then the Cowboys game, it was the huge DPI plus the
Yeah.
roughing the passer. So it's like,
Right.
despite these missed calls, the Eagles also do these things that it almost like karma gets them, like in the sense of like it evens out, in the sense that they make an equally dumb play to balance what the refs missed. And again, the Eagles are they're fifth best at penalties, so they're the fifth least penalized team in the league, and they're doing things that they should be penalized for. And I understand, like, as a opposing fan, like we do this in basketball all the time. Like, we get pissed. Like, I understand when there's obvious missed calls that just should be called, and it's super clear, doesn't make any sense. Like,
Yeah.
I am a victim of that, and it's easy to say it's not that when you're the team that it doesn't go against. So,
Right.
but again, each game there's been 5 or 6 moments in each of those games where the Chiefs had a chance, the Cowboys had a chance, the Bills had a chance to win the game, and they didn't execute. And then when it came down to it, the Eagles did, and it just
Yeah.
didn't. And that's what I'm so confident in, because for some reason, even when we have our blunders, we end up the victor, and it's just weird. And I don't think it's something that, like, so that's why I think the Eagles getting getting the 1 seed is so important, because I think the Eagles just need rest at this point. Like, everybody needs rest in the NFL, but like, they're not getting another Thursday night game. They're playing, they started off playing the 4 toughest teams in the league that you can offer. One of Bills, you can say whatever you want about that, but like, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, and the Niners are, and the Eagles are considered 3 of the top 5 teams in the league. And you have to play the Chiefs, then go on short rest to play the Bills, and then play an overtime game, somehow pull that out, and now you have to go play the Niners, who are off of a Thursday night game and they got extra rest. And then next week, the Cowboys are playing now. They don't play until next Sunday. So the Eagles are now being faced with these disadvantages at the worst time. So if we got the 1 seed, secured the bye, that would make me so much more confident for the playoffs. Not that I don't think we couldn't run the table if we were the 2 seed or lower, but being the 1 seed right now, given the way our schedule is played out since the bye, is so crucial to me. That's where I want, like, if the Eagles just gut it out for one more game and just give themselves that much more room for error, then I'm even more confident. So,
So, yeah, I got one more question for you then.
okay.
If I'm going to give you 2 scenarios.
Okay.
No, I'm going to give you one, and I just want you to answer. All right.
This is
So,
it.
this is it. So, would you feel differently, in general, differently, if the Niners dominate this game and win, or barely win, pull it out of their sleeve and win? Like, would you feel more, pressure if we dominate versus eke out a win? Like, would you feel like it's more nerve-wracking going forward?
I think it would be, so let's say, I don't think it'll be by this much, but let's say the Niners just 42-10 us, right? Just like y'all did the Cowboys. So if the Niners just body us, the beautiful thing about this is I won't be worried. Now I'm going to be very annoyed with the commentary that's going to be on the Eagles if they get dominated, it's going to be like, the Eagles are frauds. They can't play a real team, even though they've beaten the Chiefs, the Dolphins, the Bills. Like then the talk is going to be the Niners are the team to beat. And again, totally earned, totally deserved if you guys do come in here and wallop us. But there were already factors against us that don't favor us in the first place. So it's going to, like, next time we play, because I'm so confident that we're going to get another matchup, it's going to be strength on strength, full on full. Like, we're going to have our pieces back. We're going to be in a rhythm in a way that, we'll be able to bounce back from. This is if we lose here, close or big, we will bounce back. That's where I'm confident in. Now, I think at this point, with the way the narrative is swung, the Eagles as a team have more to prove in this matchup, because the Eagles have more to prove, because if they didn't, they wouldn't be home underdogs at 10-1.
Right.
They wouldn't be. People assume the Niners are going to win this game. They're betting that the Niners are going to win this game. And I understand why. I do, but it's just like, and all these questions about the Niners come down to their quarterback and their coach in certain situations, and it baffles me and then everyone has everything to say about Jalen glowingly because he's able to come up with these wins. It's just like, I just know that if we lose, I will be disappointed, but okay, because I'm confident that the Eagles and the Niners are going to meet up again in the championship game. I just, like, my core feels it based off of how the season's gone. By the way, to add to that point, what's the Cowboys game?
Mm-hmm. It's actually 28-27, favor of Seahawks, but
Oh God!
your boy Bland got a pick.
Of course he did. Now,
Yeah. So the Cowboys are actually marching with the ball right now.
Oh great! And how much time left?
It's the third quarter. Oh no, Seattle got the ball back. I'm sorry. So Cowboys couldn't do jack with it after they
Let's
got
go.
it back, and there's 10 seconds left in the third.
Okay, so we got a ball game. So this is huge. This is huge. And if the Cowboys lose, I think already right now people are gonna question the Cowboys. This is another team with a 500 record in the
We've been
Seahawks.
questioning the Cowboys. Damn it!
You and I have been on it. The national media has
Frauds.
not. Yeah, the national media has not been on it. They're like, oh,
No.
the Cowboys this, the Cowboys that, Micah Parsons. Oh, they're cooking right now. No, they're not. They're cooking garbage teams.
Yeah.
Like, everyone looks good when you're playing garbage opponents. This is the same conversation they were trying to put on the Eagles last year. Oh, the Eagles aren't beating anybody. They're just dominating all these trash teams. I'm like, I get that. Like, I totally
Seattle's
do.
about to score again, by the way.
Let's go.
They just got like a 35-yard run.
This is at Dallas too. Like, this is gonna be bad. Like, if the Seahawks win, that's gonna set the stage for the Niner game too. This will be fun. That'll make it a little more interesting no matter what happens this weekend.
Okay, all right. One last final question then.
Mm-hmm.
You lose, let's say you lose to the Niners.
Mm-hmm.
This Cowboys team loses to this Seattle team,
Mm-hmm.
and then you guys lose to the Cowboys. Are you worried?
Yes.
It's getting weird, I know, but
I'm worried in the sense of the 1 seed. Not worried in the sense of Seattle. I think we can beat them. I still think we can beat them, but hey, that'll make me happy, because that'll lock up the NFC East. Like, if the Cowboys lose this one, then we can lose 2 games and still win the NFC East, which would be beautiful, because there hasn't been a back-to-back champion in the past 20 years. So that would in the NFC East. So that would be something special. So that'd be really cool. But yeah, this is great. So, and how would you feel? I mean, you guys already dusted them, but how would you feel if they, look good? Because they're looking good right now, I guess, against a supposed top defense. LOL.
Oh, the Cowboys?
The Seahawks.
Oh, the Seahawks? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't know.
It's weird, right? You guys have been big brothering them lately, though, so it's like,
well, yeah, because Russell Wilson isn't there anymore to big brother us. So
yeah.
That dude owns the 49ers, and I hate that so much.
Because you guys lost a matchup with him when he was on the Broncos, right?
Yeah. We lost 11-10, which was like the second time in NFL history we've lost to that scoreline. It was only because Jimmy G didn't know where the back of the freaking end zone was and stepped out of it.
Oh, that's right.
Remember when I was defending that guy? Couldn't be me.
No way.
Why?
Jimmy G's not my QB. Oh my God.
I wonder if he's done after this year. I really do.
I mean, he's benched for Aiden O'Connell. He could probably get a job somewhere, though. Like, he could be, I wouldn't be surprised. Go to the Jets. Go be their backup. Like Aaron's bound to get hurt again. Like just go be their backup.
Honestly, I would take Jimmy over Wilson any day though.
Oh,
Over
for
Zach
sure. That's what I'm
any
saying.
day.
So like Jimmy G will be, he's better than most backup options in the right
Yeah,
system. But
100%.
Jimmy also showed that Kyle Shanahan was the reason he was good. This isn't the same as Brock Purdy though. Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy are similar, but they're a more complete marriage than Jimmy and Kyle were, in my opinion.
So Jimmy proved that Shanahan was the reason for his success, as Debo and Trent prove that they're the reason for Shanahan's success.
Exactly. There you go.
We've got an interesting little domino effect going on.
Shanahan's ability to control. That's the difference between Shanahan and Sirianni, right? That's the difference between what Brock is allowed to do in the offense versus what Jalen's allowed to do in the offense. Nick Sirianni's like, hey, Jalen, oh, you don't like this play? Go ahead, and you and Jason
Right.
talk it out, switch it up if you want to. Versus Kyle is like, hey, Brock, like you can make those dangerous throws if you want to, but I'm still gonna be mad at you if you make those throws because that's not what I wanted you to do.
That ball to Ayuk in the Seahawks game where he threw it between
Clean.
4 defenders, which was as elite of a pass as you can dot out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't supposed to make that. He was supposed to dish it off, dump it off, and he took the shot. And Shanahan was like, "What the? Like, what are you doing?"
I do think though, with that in that same vein, I do think that could be the moment where the Eagles could capitalize in this game. Because if Brock, I'm not saying that Brock should follow everything that he says, but I think that Brock has been so confident this year that he might take a shot that he shouldn't take when the better option was there because of the success that he's had recently. He's like, I'm hot right now. I'm on a heater. Like I can make those throws. Like bet on me. That might be the chance where the Eagles could catch him.
But your secondary still has to make that play, and they haven't necessarily proven that this year.
No, the only thing
they've made some big plays here and there, but overall,
the only thing they've proven is that they can allow teams not to score. That doesn't mean that teams can't move up and down the field on them because that's what they've been doing. And
that's kind of the thing is if this game comes down to the battle of the trenches, it's whoever can get down the field the farthest, and then it turns into a field goal battle if no one can punch it in.
Yeah. That also, like, if the Eagles can control time of possession, if either team can control time of possession, it's huge. Yeah. Like, if one team can just slowly, methodically just go up the field, the defense can't stop them. The Eagles, like, if the Eagles keep getting, third and shorts and converting, keeping the offense off the field, and then putting them in a position to be behind, it'll be tough. Did the Seahawks just score?
Seahawks just scored 35-27.
This is a game.
So I think that we need to get off of this soon and start watching this game because this will come down to our teams. So Final thoughts, Marcos, on this beautiful Week 13 matchup that we've been dying to get to.
Final thoughts is this is going to be an awesome game. And by the way, you said your score 35-24. Mine is 30-27. I think it's going to be close. And especially with the rain too.
You got the Niners,
playing
right?
a factor. Yeah, good one. The Eagles are going to win 30-27. But I'm excited. Heavyweight matchup. I'm excited, like, just for our conversation over the weekend. This is going to be a little brutal. I'm really excited for it. What about you? What are your final thoughts?
I'm really excited for it, man. It's going to come down to in the trenches, got to take care of business, and please, on either side, no more injuries. Because
seriously,
this is the stretch, like when you're putting your heart and your soul into a game, this is the stretch you don't want to lose any key guys or anybody for that matter. So let's just get out of this game healthy because we got 5 more weeks of football after this. So
and then we got our rematch 3 weeks later. So like we need our guys healthy for our rematch. So it's gonna go down like that. So without further ado, this was episode 19 of the Behind the Back podcast. So we are letting you guys know now this is going to come out to Friday. So we're going to come back early next week. We're going to be recording Monday night. My mother will be coming into town. Shout out Mama Ruth. She'll be coming into town. So on Tuesday. So we'll record Monday for the immediate reaction to this fun game that's going to happen. So if you guys want, so look out for that on Tuesday. We'll be ready to go. So without further ado, I'm Marcos Conan. Beside me here is
Benny the Jet Reds.
So you can hit us up on YouTube now. We're going to be on YouTube. Please subscribe, comment, give us a like, and let us know your takes. Now that it'll be a more open platform, you can just leave whatever comments, critiques of the show. We love to hear your opinions. Like, we want a dialogue with you guys, so we want to hear that. And you can also reach us at behindthebackpod13@gmail.com. Hit us up on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, X. I already said Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. So hit us up there too. You can find our links to everything on whether you're listening on Amazon, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You'll find links to our YouTube there too, should you want to watch us and see our pretty faces as we roast each other and who's going to be crying on Tuesday night when you guys see it.
I got one more thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
Bang, bang, Niner gang.
Fly, Eagles, fly. We got this. This is going to be fun. All right, guys. Peace.
Peace.